I'm just going to bring up the slides, and we'll make a start in the next few minutes. So let's just do that now. We're going to talk about Google Calendar. This is the second of 3 CloudShare support sessions. So let's get into it. I'm going to basically cover these things, which is a quick overview of some of the basics with Calendar. Talk a little bit about how you could use Calendar for your teacher timetable. How you give students access to your calendar. We'll talk a little bit about embedding in Google Sites. A really useful function called appointment slots, and then we'll talk about subscribing and unsubscribing from calendars. Thanks, Alma, for getting the door. And if we get a bit of time, we might look at Hangouts, attachments, and scope and sequence. So hopefully during this time, if you've got any questions, you can unmute your microphone and just feel free to ask any questions. There's only a few of us today. On the Hangout, Alma should be able to answer any questions that you've got there, or at least let me know if you've got a question. We're happy to cover it. So it's about, just looking at the clock, it's about 25 to 4. So let's spend about 10 minutes just doing a few basic things around calendars. Well, actually, I might even ask the question, do you need me to do this? Do you need me to show you how to create a calendar, create and edit events, invite people to an event, set reminders, repeat events, or sharing? Which one would you like me to start with first? Or none?
We know how to create calendars and edit, but maybe the invitations and reminders.
Okay, cool. Happy to do that.
The same here, Greg. I can create, and some of the finer points would be better.
Okay, fantastic. And I'll quickly show you sharing. All right, well, let's get into that straight away. So I'm just going to get out of the presentation. Actually, no, I won't do that. I'll go back to the presentation, and I'll just shift my screen across. So I'm looking at my calendar here. Right now, you can see that I'm looking at my own personal calendar, Greg Basford. Now, is that legible? Mike, can you see what I'm pointing at there? Can you see the screen okay?
Yes, it's a little bit dithery, but it's okay. I can see it.
Okay. What I might do is just bump up the size of the text. Is that a bit better? Melissa, can you see that okay?
That's better, thank you.
Yep, excellent. All right. So you can see I've got my calendar there. So whenever you've got a colour next to your calendar, that means you're seeing that particular calendar. If I click the colour, it will get rid of it. So I'm not seeing any of my calendars anymore, right? I'll go back to my calendar. So we said we knew how to use or how to create events. So for instance, tomorrow at around about, on Saturday at around about 12 o'clock, I'm going to be playing golf. So if I wanted to put that event in there, I would simply drag in, make a new event. It asks me to enter the details, which I'll do at St Michael's GC. And then if I want to change things around the event, I simply hit edit the event or edit event. And now I can do things like enter where it is. I can change the time, that's fine. I can repeat that event. So if I know I'm going to be playing golf every Saturday at a particular time, right, I can repeat that event for as often as I like. I can repeat it for a certain number of occasions. I can repeat it until a particular date, etc. Or I can just repeat it forever. So I might repeat that for, say, three occurrences. So I don't want to flood my calendar with that, and hit done. So that's going to set that event for each Saturday at that time 3 times. Hit done. Okay. You can put in a description, etc. Now, if I wanted to invite someone along to that event, so say Mick Burden over at St Mary's Cathedral College, so I know Mick's a keen golfer. So if I wanted to do that, I'd simply start typing his name, Michael. Oops, try that again. Michael Burden, and there he is, okay? And that will pop him in. So you can add individuals to as guests to an event. In this case, I don't want to spam Michael, so what I might do is just add Alma into this, even though she doesn't play golf. And maybe Mike, I can add you in there. Michael Rawlings, there you are, etc. Maybe Melissa as well, and we'll make up a 4-ball. There you are, Melissa. And you'll notice that your names are coming up near the top. That's because I've corresponded with you before reasonably recently, like the email that I just sent you about an hour ago, right? That's why it's popping up to the top of the list. So Google's pretty clever like that. So you can add people like that. Another nice little feature is that you can add attachments. I won't do that now. You can set reminders. You can give the event a particular color. Okay, so I want to make it a red color or something like that. And once I save that, hit save, it's going to ask me whether I want to send invitations. If I hit send, then that's going to go off. And if you look at your inboxes now, you'll see an invitation to that event. Okay? So I'll give you a couple of seconds. That might take 10 seconds or so to come into your inbox. Mike, has that appeared yet? Yep. So you've got that event. So that's the way you can do. You can invite people to events, set reminders and repeat events, etc. What about sharing a calendar? So that was the other key thing. So you can see my calendar over here. That's my own personal calendar. Everybody gets a calendar. You can also see, just hide that. In fact, what I might do is I might hide the mini calendar there. You can see I've got my calendars listed up here, and I'll talk about these ones in a little while. You can see I've got lots of other calendars here as well, right? So these are calendars that have been shared with me. Now, by default, in our system, every person's individual calendar is automatically shared. But don't panic about that, because what that means is that anyone can ask to have a look at your calendar, and by default, they will only see where you're free and busy. They won't by default see the actual details. So for instance, if someone was going to look at my calendar, they would just see a block of time there from 12 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. on Saturday the 24th, but it wouldn't tell them where I was or what I was doing. It would just say busy. That's it. Okay? And that's because when I look at my calendar, hover over my calendar and look at the settings and choose share this calendar, you can see I've got share this calendar with everyone in the organisation CEO Sydney Schools. So I'm sharing that with all staff, but they're only seeing free or busy. That's all they're seeing. However, I have got other colleagues, such as Alma next to me, the eLearning advisors, who I'm happy for them to see all events. So you can share a calendar with somebody. So for instance, Mike Rawlings, I could share this with you. Michael Rawlings. There you are. And it'll add you to the bottom of the list. There you are. And I can say, well, Mike, I'm going to let you see all my event details. Or I can either let you make changes to my events. Okay? Now, that only applies, those top two settings, make changes and manage sharing, those top two changes only apply to teachers within the diocese. They don't apply to anyone outside of the staff. So that wouldn't apply, for instance, to students or parents that you share with, or individual Gmail addresses. Okay? So it's pretty straightforward. I'll quickly go back and do that again. I won't save it. So just to recap on that, I hover over the calendar that I want to share, click the little down pointing arrow, say share this calendar. I can either share it, if you like, generically, making sure that anyone who wants to see my calendar can, but they'll only see free or busy, or I can add individuals in there. Okay? So there's some of the basics, I guess, of working with calendars. So what about using using some of these tools in your classroom situation? Well, we're going to look at a couple of examples of that. The first one would be, how would you, as a high school teacher, set up something like your timetable in Google Calendar? Well, we've seen this done by a number of teachers in a number of different ways. Alma does it herself over at Mary McKellar College. And in fact, Alma, why don't you talk about the way that you set up your calendar?
Oh, okay. If we go to the next slide,
Yep.
and I'll use that as an example. There's a couple of ways you can do that. You might like to set up your calendars for each of your classes as they appear in your timetable. So you basically get your timetable and just manually import those lessons that you teach and then the other events that you would like your calendars for. The other way to do it is to organize it by year group. It's really easy if you do it by class, because you can then share that class calendar with the students in that class.
So Alma, each one of those 7VA3, 7VA8, they're individual calendars.
Yes.
Separate calendars.
Yep.
Okay?
So in my calendars, I would create a calendar and call it that class name, and then set it up so that it repeats every couple of weeks, because we run on a 2-week cycle. So if your schools run on a 2-week cycle, you can just set that up in your settings and make sure that it ends, say, on Christmas Day or something like that, so it runs all the way through the year. Color code them if you like. I'd like to color code to be able to see them at a glance, and then go through and customize. So even things like playground duties I like to share, because if I do a swap, I'll probably notify somebody via calendar just by making the change, rather than having to email them separately. So it makes a big difference. Does that cover? I don't want to run into.
No, that's okay. Yeah, that's fine. So what we'll do is we'll do a quick demonstration of that. It's very straightforward, right? And we'll demonstrate that for you now. So I'm just going to go back to my calendar. I won't save the changes there. I'm back at my calendar. Now you can see I've already got a number of these calendars already set up here. So just hide that. There we are. So you can see all of those calendars. So what's happened here, this is interesting. What Alma has done, they're actually Alma's calendars that are showing here, not my calendars. But because Alma has shared the calendar with me, as I can make changes to it and I can manage the sharing of that calendar, right? She shared it to me at that top level. They appear under my calendars because I've effectively got the same rights as Alma over the calendar. So it's like a delegation idea. She's delegated the calendar to me, if you like.
And it's really great to be able to share that with the KLA coordinators or any other teachers who you might be job sharing with. I found it very useful in a job sharing situation where the other teacher and I shared the same class. We would put all of our lesson notes in the description of that class. So if you double click on a calendar, Greg,
let's say 11VA, yep.
We would basically put all of our lesson notes, any attachments to Google Docs, any reminders. So you can share it with the students and then set reminders. So, a day before some homework or lesson preparation or some readings might be due. So students find that fairly useful. And if you share it with the students, they just get all of that automatically populating as you edit. So it's really a bit of a chronicle in a sense, in a register.
Okay, and we'll show that in a second. So you can see that it looks like one calendar, but in fact it's several calendars. So how would you go ahead and make those calendars? Well, it's pretty straightforward. The first thing you need to do is create a new calendar. So you mentioned at the beginning that you knew how to create a new calendar. You just go create, give it a name, etc. I won't go ahead and do that because we've already gone ahead and created these calendars here. So let's say I wanted to set up the calendar, like set up these classes. So for instance, what I'll do is I'll hide all of the other ones so it's a little bit more obvious. And I'll just focus on this one, this 7VA8-13, as in 2013 calendar, right? So here's these events. So it looks as though you've got this class 3 times a fortnight or 3 times a week.
Yep.
3 times in that week.
Actually, we
Yeah.
haven't done the next
Oh,
week.
we haven't done the next week. Okay, that's fine. You know, you would obviously have some other lessons in the following week if this was the full timetable. So say I was building this and I wanted to make these lessons. So I hadn't created this particular lesson. Well, I'll leave it there, but I'll make a duplicate. By the way, you'll notice that there's a little white gap there. So if I need to add in another event at the same time, I can. So to add that event is pretty easy. Just drag over it like that. Give it a name. So this is, I think it's period 4, isn't it? Period 4. Yep. And it's 7-7VA8. And I think you said DEF, as in it's got classes DEF in it. So I give the appointment a title. Oops, missed that. Try that again. Vagaries of a mouse. Try that again. It's probably good that you see it again anyway. So it's period 4, 7VA8, DEF. Okay. And what I'm going to do is edit that event. So I'll hit edit that event. And basically what I want to do is duplicate or set up what's happening with that event. I could put the lesson information in there if I wanted to. Obviously I want to set the time. And so you're not limited to just the blocks of time here. For instance, I think this one starts at 12:35 and finishes at 1:30. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's right. So just click on that 1:30. So we've got a 55-minute period here. But this is the key, obviously, because you don't want to have to make this event for every class, for every time it's on. What you want to do is you want to repeat it. So this one here is going to be repeated, say, every fortnight, right? Every 2 weeks on a Friday, and let's say we'll repeat it, 10 times, something like that. Or you could select a date and say, it will end on such and such a date, or it will never repeat. Okay? Hit done. You could add a description in there if you wanted to. You could give it a particular colour, so we'll leave it at the colour that it's already on, but you could change its colour if you wanted to. And we'll leave the privacy settings as they are. You don't need to invite anyone to it because we're going to show you how students can get access to that in a minute. We'll hit save. Okay, so you can see the 2 events are there. They're basically identical. I've just copied one from the other just to show you the process. There's the original one. Right? Sorry, no, that's the one I've just done. This is the original one, I think. Yeah, that's the original one. So you would simply do that for each event in your calendar for that particular class. So you go ahead and do that for that year 7 class. You do it for this one, for your year 11 class, etc., year 8 and year 9, and eventually you've built up your timetable. So that's pretty much it, isn't it? There's really not much else you need to do there, and that way you can set up your timetable and have it ready to share. Do you think a setup would work like that for you, or what would be another way that you might want to set it up? Melissa and Enzo, I'm going to look at primary schools in a second. Have you guys tried to set up a timetable with your calendar, or have you looked at another way to do it?
That's just be permanently on.
We can hear you.
We haven't really used it for timetabling, no.
Not at all.
But we wanted to for like events, when you have guest speakers, so the classes have different times.
Okay. Mike, has anyone tried to use calendar for their timetables?
We tend to put events on. We've got a master calendar that everybody can share, and then they can add their own calendar sort of onto that. So we have one that's set up by the deputy initially at the beginning of the school year or the end of the year. And people seem to superimpose things on that rather than put timetable things in.
Okay. So do you think this, we've obviously got a lot of teachers around the diocese who are doing this sort of thing. Would you suggest a different way to maybe do it for your teachers at your school, or would that, if there are teachers at Brigidine who wanted to do this, Would this be the way they'd approach it, or can you think of a different way that they'd approach it?
I think some of them would do it this way if they want to put that as their own personal, timetable. They would do it that way. It'll be fine. Oh, hang on.
As you'll see in a minute, if you set up the individual classes as separate timetables, it then becomes simple to share that with students, right? So that the students can then bring that into their own timetable.
Yeah. I think if I show people that side of it, maybe more people would do it.
Okay.
And I think having it accessible for something other than just accessing whole school events that wouldn't necessarily be needed every day, every minute of the day, I suppose, also means that staff would use it a lot more and find it as a time saver, as I have, and for students as well to access work and things more easily.
The way we've seen this set up with primary school teachers is that instead of having multiple calendars because you've just got the one class, you just have one calendar, but you'd use colour coding of the events for separate subjects or times of the day or however you want to split that up. You also may want to have separate colours or even separate calendars if you want for specialists who might help you in your class or support teachers, that sort of thing. So here's an example. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have the colour coding, but you can see this teacher simply set up the different parts of their day on their calendar, and it's just the one calendar. But you could colour code each of those different areas, so science and social studies, etc., are a different colour to math, English, etc. And as I showed you before, just quickly zip over, it's pretty easy to change the colour of the colour code of an event. You simply click on the event, scroll down to the bottom, and then just pick a different colour, and then save. You'll notice that when you save something on a recurring event, you get the option to either change it for just that event or all of the events, right? So you're able to discriminate between changing all or just some of those events. I won't make that change, so I'll hit cancel. And discard the changes there. So, Melissa and Enzo, are you clear then on how, if you were going to help teachers or show teachers how they could create their own classroom calendar? Is that pretty straightforward, or would you like me to answer any other questions on that?
Yeah, we actually did have one question, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
We were just discussing just a moment ago having or using the calendar obviously for our own classes, our teacher timetable, and we were discussing compliance. Is there a way to then somehow save that view, like that particular timetable, and save it to our server, if that's a valid question?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, actually. Very good question.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to export, what you can do is you can export the complete timetable.
Yep.
In a number of different formats. So if we have a look at that, we go to My Calendar and go Calendar Settings. We can, where are we? Hang on, let me have a look here.
I've done this through iCal because we use when we started with MacBooks, and before Google was rolled out, we were using iCal, and that allowed for a very easy export. And it listed you can actually customize and do quite a lot. You can do that with Google Calendar, and we can because there's a few step process. We might be able to post at the end of this presentation, while Greg is speaking, I might just do an export and see if I can post a couple of screenshots so that you can have a look at that. But
thank you.
It's certainly an option. You can export the calendars. You can even export them and import them into iCal or something else that you're using, and in any other way. So if you go to customize color size and other options.
where are we? Oh, there it is.
You can even,
Yeah,
if you're
that's it.
using Google Sites, for example, for your KLA admin documents, you can actually export specific details from your calendar and specific calendars, and then embed them, get an embed code and embed them into a registration page, for example, on your KLA site. So it will then just list every single event, date, and timestamp for every single class that's happened. And if the teachers haven't had those classes and they just entered that class didn't happen because there was an athletics carnival or some presentation or an excursion, all of that will show, and you can then chase it through the program and just compare and plan for the next year.
So Alma, I couldn't see where the export option was.
I'll have a look and I'll find it.
Yeah.
I haven't used that in a while.
Yeah.
iCalc, but there is a way to
Yeah, I'm just having a look now. Pretty confident that we've done this before. It's just been a while since I've done it. So, hold on, just bear with me for 1 sec. Share settings. Okay. Export a calendar. All right, we might have to take that. We might have to take that offline and try and come back to it. What we might do is edit the presentation, find out the answer to that, and then edit the presentation. But I'm pretty sure you can export a calendar. You can certainly get. Yeah, we'll need to find that out. But really good question.
Not
really
a problem. Thank you.
Okay, so just back to the next section. So student access. How do you go about sharing with students? So you can share with individual students by entering their email addresses. You can share with groups. So you can enter one of the group email addresses. So if you're familiar with the idea of Google Groups, that is a single email address that represents a whole mailing list or a whole group of students. You can share that way. And once you've shared, you can control access on what kind of access students get.
Oh, here,
We found it?
Yeah, it's just under, if you go to My Calendars.
Yep, I'm sure it'll be in there somewhere. My calendars, settings. Yep.
And we probably didn't see it before because this list gets really long. So if you scroll to the bottom of this, but not to the next section, so stop right there. And
there it is. There it is. Export calendars.
You need to be able. You have to tick the ones that you'd like to export. Otherwise, you might get a whole stack.
That's right. So you hit export calendars, and so for some reason that's my internet stopped working, which is interesting. Oh, there it is. It's just, there you go. It's just actually exported them right then, right? So it's exported that calendar that I mentioned. It's a whole group of calendars.
Yeah. So you have to tick the ones that you'd like to export. It's probably might be useful if you want to export all of your 7 classes together and compare them. Yeah. But you can certainly also embed them into sites to save on exports and printing and so on.
Okay. Well, that's good, Enzo. We found that answer to your question for you.
Yeah, there it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry, could you just run through that again? I just missed where you actually went.
Okay, sure. So it's under My Calendars. You say Settings. And as Alma found it, I was looking for it and couldn't see it. You need to scroll further down. Keep scrolling until you see a section. It's kind of like a dividing section next to Create New Calendar. And then it says Export Calendars. Right? And as it says there, download in a zip file containing each of your calendars in an ICS format, which I think you would use then to import into another calendar program. Right? So I'm wondering that's for compliance purposes. That's probably not exactly what you want. What you probably want is some sort of listing, right, of events and that sort of thing. So we might need to do a bit more investigation on that for you. Okay, you can certainly, if you're probably aware of this, you can certainly, when you look at a calendar, you can look at a calendar in agenda view, right? And I'm just wondering when you print, so you can print the orientation. You can print from a certain range, and can you print? Just thinking whether you can print.
Oh, that's actually a really good trick.
Because you can print as a PDF.
You can say print and then save it as a PDF.
Yeah.
And so, you can choose what shows up and how it shows up.
Yeah. So here it is now. So what you do is you print it. So there you go. So there's you get some sort of printout, and then instead of printing it to an actual printer, you hit change and say, save this to Google Drive or save it as a PDF, etc. I think that's probably more like what you wanted there, Enzo.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what we were asking. Thank you.
No worries.
Spot on. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So let's just go back to the weekly view. I'm glad we could sort that one out for you. All right, so let's go back to sharing with individuals, because what I want to show you is how you would share a particular class calendar with a student. Okay? So let's say I wanted to share, and I'll just collapse that so it's a little bit easier to see. Let's say I wanted to share, I'll get rid of all of that My Calendar stuff, and I'll just focus on that 7VA8 calendar. So say I wanted to share this 7VA8 calendar with a student or a group of students. Then I can do this. I can go share this calendar, and as you can see here, I've typed in some people's addresses here. So I've shared it with Alma. Obviously, it's my calendar. You can see I've also shared this with a user called td.secondary@cbcburwood.catholic.edu.au. Now, just so you understand this and it's clear, that's a made-up address. It's like a dummy address in a separate Google environment that we use for testing, right? And it's good for when I demonstrate these sorts of things. Obviously, if you were going to share it with a student, you'd need to type in there, mary.smith@sidstew.catholic.edu.au. Are we right with that idea? Yeah? So something like mary.smith@sidstew.catholic, etc. edu.au. Okay? So that's going to share that with Mary Smith.
Greg,
okay,
can you add? Sorry, Greg, can you add a group that you've created?
Absolutely.
Okay, the same way you just put in their email address that's been created by the group creation.
Correct.
Yes?
Correct.
Thank you.
I don't have an email group a student email group to share with to use there, but it works in the same way. And I'm just going to show you how it works when you share it with a student. So I'm just going to remove TD Secondary and save that. And I'm going to go back and do that again. So here I go. I'm going to share this calendar. And I want to share this calendar with that particular student, td.secondary. And there it is because I've used that address before. Now you'll see here that I only get two options, see all event details and see only free busy. Okay? That's because in our domain, when we share outside with the domain at the moment, we can't allow outsiders to edit events. But for students, that's not a big deal, right? Because you just basically want them to be able to see what's going on and to be able to get their timetable, in this case, right? Not necessarily change the events because it's coming from your calendar. So that's not such a big issue. Now you'll notice that when I hit save here, watch what happens. So I've entered that person's email address. I've said yes, they can see all event details. That student can see all the event details. I'm going to hit save, and I get a message here. Are you sure you want to give access to the following addresses outside this calendar's organisation? That's because, as we know, students are in a different Google Apps world to teachers, right? They're two separate domains. So it's asking, do you want to go outside of the teacher domain to the student domain? We're saying yes, we want to do that. And when we do that, that's fine. And what's just happened there, by the way, when I go back to share this calendar, you'll see it's still there for all events and details. If I now go back, and I'm logged in at the moment as this student, okay? I'm going to go and have a look at the email, and you can see there's an email that's just been sent, okay? Would I like to subscribe? View your calendar. And there's the calendar. Okay, we'll go to week so she can see that. Okay, there's the calendar. So there's that 7VA13 calendar that's been shared with the student. So it's automatically populated their calendar. You'll notice that back on my calendar, on the teacher, right, I've created the calendar. I've coloured that green, right, because that's the colour I want. In the student's calendar, it's whatever colour they want, right? So they can go ahead and they can change that colour and make it red, right? Whatever they want.
Maybe just untick the other calendars.
So it's a good idea. Thanks, Alma. So there it is, right? So this student could say, well, I want my 7VA class to come up in red, thank you very much. So students can change the colours as they like. So, yeah, it may not be a wise thing to say, your calendar should be in green. Well, it won't necessarily be that colour. It'll be whatever colour the student makes it. Okay? So how do we go with that? Any questions on that? Mike?
Just on if some of the clients that you're sharing with, and like I'm thinking of our parent group, does that affect the way it shares at all? The level of permission that they get in looking at all events or whatever?
No, you can take particular events and make them private if you want to.
Right.
So if you've got a parent group that you want to share a calendar with, by default they'll see whatever level of sharing that you set up here, right? Whether it's see all event details or see only free busy. It would normally be see all event details. Because they're outside of the domain, they won't get these make changes to events, etc.
Right.
They'll only be able to see all event details or free or busy. Free or busy is pretty useless to them, right? So you would keep it at that. Okay?
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily have to, as we'll see in a second, you don't necessarily have to share them with individuals, right? You could make the calendar public, right? And then embed the calendar on a Google site, in which case they just have to go to the website and they'll see the calendar there. Does that make sense? Great.
That's fine.
Okay, excellent. Okay, any other questions on that? All right, let's move on. So talking about that, Michael, let's talk about how you would embed a calendar on a Google site. So the first thing you want to make sure of, as we were just talking about, is that if you're going to share a calendar, so for instance this eLearning advisors calendar here, if I'm going to share that calendar, or embed that calendar, on a website, then I need to make sure that that calendar is shared appropriately, right? So for instance, at the moment, this particular calendar, this eLearning advisors calendar details, is only shared with these individuals, right? Do you see how that share this calendar with others is not there, right? So what that means is if I'm embedding that calendar in a website such as this, okay, let me refresh. You may not see that calendar. Now notice this, I'm logged in as that TD Secondary CBC Burwood, but I am seeing the calendar. The only reason I could be seeing that calendar is that I must be added as a user in here, and you can see I am, td.secondary at CBC Burwood, right? So because the user is added and can see all event details, that's why I can see, on this website, I can see that calendar. However, if I removed that, right, and saved it, right, so now this is this eLearning Advisors calendar, right? If I remove that and then refresh, we should get an error message. Look for events earlier, look for more, no, look for earlier, nothing. I'm not seeing it, right? Because it's not shared publicly. But if I go back now, go back to that calendar, share it, and let's say I'll make this calendar, either share it with everyone in CEO Sydney schools or make this calendar public, which means that everyone can see it, including students. Now, when I refresh the page, may not update straight away, but let's see. Okay, so it's a little bit behind. I find that sometimes the calendar updates may take 30 seconds or so to update. So let's see, we'll give it a couple of seconds. Okay, so it's actually still behind from the previous one, so we'll give that a bit of time. So anyway, we'll leave that. Oh, sorry, I hadn't saved it, that's why. I hadn't saved it, so I'll hit save. That's a better explanation rather than a delay of 30 seconds. I do find that there is still a bit of a delay. So we'll see how we go. And there you go. You can see it's still not quite ready yet. But we should see that come up shortly. Keep refreshing. It might take a little bit of time. I'll go back to that. I'll go back to that in a minute. So what I want to show you is how you would embed a calendar in a Google site. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm looking at this eLearning site at the moment. I'm going to go to, and you'll notice that I'm a manager of the site. I've got editing rights to a Google site here, so I can, edit a page, add a new page, open more actions, and play around with this site. So this is our eLearning portal. I've got a page on the site, which is that events site that we were just looking at, that events calendar. And you can see that this calendar is showing up in the website. How did I do that? It's pretty easy. You simply go to the web page where you want to embed the calendar, hit the pencil to edit the page, and you can see I've got a gadget there called Google Calendar. I could remove that, which I'll do, and I can now insert a calendar. So as you can see here, you say edit page, insert, and then choose calendar. So I'll do that again. I'll say insert, calendar. And when you do that, you get access to all of the calendars that you have access to, right? That are shared with you. So in this case, I could choose that eLearning Advisors calendar again, and then select it. And that would pop that calendar in. And you can see you can choose, various things about how the calendar looks, its height, its width, etc. I might make that a bit higher than 600 pixels. I might make that 800 pixels, 8,800. Leave that empty for a width so it takes up the whole of the site. How do you want to view it? Well, I want to view it as an agenda. You can choose your time zone if you want to. So I'll just go down the bottom here. I'm pretty sure we're always down the bottom, Australian Eastern Standard Time. There it is, Australian Eastern Standard Time. And you can say, well, what sort of display options you want, navigation buttons, etc. Okay, I won't include a title, and then I'll hit save. And that will pop that calendar in. I'll put it in the center. So there's that calendar. So I'm not seeing it yet because I haven't hit save, right? When I hit save, that will pop that calendar in. So it's pretty straightforward. And if the calendar is shared appropriately, when another user goes and looks at the site, hopefully they'll be able to have access to it. And there you go. So that's finally filtered through. So the other nice thing about this is that when someone looks at a calendar, if they want to add these events to their own calendar, then you can do that really easily. If you scroll down to the bottom of where the calendar is embedded on the site, you'll see a little button that says plus Google Calendar. I love this because if I say, all right, well, actually, I want this eLearning advisor's calendar to come up in my own calendar, to actually appear here as one of my other calendars here. Get it to appear in this list, right? I can simply go to this button down the bottom, hit plus Google Calendar, and then that will add it to my Google Calendar.
I might just add that if Greg had selected 2 or more calendars and embedded 2 or more calendars in, when you hit plus Google Calendar, it will actually list them and say, would you like to import all of them, or would you like to import only a selection? So you then have a choice to import potentially just the ones that you want to, maybe not all of the ones that are displayed. So if you have your year group assessment calendars, which we do at our school, you could do the same thing, publish them all on your school website even, and then parents or students can just hit the plus Google Calendar and add only the ones that they want to their own private calendars, whether they're school calendars, student Google school calendars, or whether they're their own private calendars. So depending on the settings that you've enabled, of course.
So let me do another one. Let's say that 7VA8 calendar. Select that. So this is what Alma was talking about. Hit save. And save again. So now we're seeing both calendars listed, this time in agenda format or monthly format or weekly format, whatever format you want. Now, if I go back here and refresh, pretty sure I had still shared that, hadn't I? Let's have a look.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I had. There you go. So you can see all of those are coming up for the student. If I hit plus Google Calendar, there it is. It says, would you like to add this calendar? Yes, add. No, do not add this one. And it's already added the other one as well. Normally comes up with a list,
it will come up with a list, maybe because there's just 2.
And because I've added it before, I think, as well.
And that's really good. If you've got a KLA site and you're listing all of the science calendars for every single year group in one list, because it's easy for the teachers and the students to see all of it, then the students of that KLA can just add the calendar for them for their own group, but you can just direct them there, and you can do that. You can list the calendars of all the teachers, so the students can actually just select their own teacher if they wanted to, and it will just populate in their own calendar, or even the other teachers.
So what you would do is, they'd have the choice of listing any of those, of selecting any of those calendars to add.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about is appointment slots. So this is a really cool feature of Google Calendar. What it effectively lets you do, and there's a nice little video that I've included on the presentation that takes you through it step by step. What it allows you to do is set out a block of time, divide that block of time into smaller segments, like say I set out a 3-hour block of time, divide that into 6 30-minute segments, right? Then send that block of time to a number of people, inviting them to select one of those 30-minute segments and book themselves into that. Okay? So it's fantastic for things like parent-teacher interviews. Wouldn't be 30 minutes, I guess, but whatever you want to set aside. Careers advisors being able to set aside a block of time where students could book themselves in, or students to book study periods or homework help with you. Okay? So let me show you a demonstration. And if you want to, we'll do this in a second. You can click here. You'll get a chance to click that link on the presentation and try this yourself. So let me show you the demonstration first. So let's say I'll go up to, let me just bring mine up here. So you can see I've got an event that I've created here. You can see that might be a little bit hard to see, but just above where it says CloudShare, there's a little grid icon. That grid icon is indicating that these are appointment slots. How did I do that? Well, I'll do a dummy one over here. It's pretty easy. You just drag over, and instead of saying event, you hit appointment slots. Right? You give it a name, you decide what the slots are, 30 minutes, etc., or whatever, and then hit create slots or edit details. Well, I'm not going to do this one. I basically did the same thing with this one over here, so I'll just edit it, and this is what you get. You basically get you give it a title, you can call it whatever you like. You've got your time block there. You can repeat the time block if you want to. So if this is a regular thing that you're going to do every week, right, you can repeat that, like homework help or a careers advisor, the examples I gave before. I won't do it in this case. You can offer it as a single slot or divide it into 15-minute slots, and then fill out your description, etc. Right? So I was thinking, for me, I might use this as a way of allowing people to book one-on-one time with me around CloudShare. So a teacher could book a 15-minute slot with me to discuss a particular problem, work through a particular issue, do a particular how-to, something like that. Right? You might want to do that if you've got some Google Guides at your school. That's maybe one way that they could do it. So once you've done that, you get given this, and it's a pretty horrible looking thing, but it's basically an email address. Sorry, not an email address, a web address. And that web address there is what's on this link here. So if I click that link now, and you can do this yourselves, if you click that link yourself, you might have to go to go across to the 3rd of September. You should see 8 slots there for that 2-hour time period, from 9 to 11. The 8 15-minute slots. And you can book yourself into one of those slots. So Alma, would you mind choosing one of those slots and booking yourself into it? If you want to have a go at that now, you can book yourself into one of the slots. Just quickly show you again what I did. I'm on the slide deck, and I simply went to, turn to full screen. I simply went to click here to book an appointment. So that's that link, right? That's that link here that I was showing you here. It's that link that I've just put into the text. So you click here to book an appointment slot. It will bring up the appointment slots. Hit next appointment slot there, and you can see someone's already busy. Is that you, Alma? Right? So Mike and Melissa and Enzo, why don't you try booking one of the appointment slots with me?
Yep, we're doing that now. Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Give you a couple of seconds to do that.
Actually, sorry, we've already done it. Yes.
You've already done it? Okay, let me refresh.
Can we just ask also?
Yeah.
Once you've made an appointment, can somebody else book over your appointment? Can they delete yours and?
No.
Okay. All right.
So Melissa has booked in for that 10 a.m. to 10:15 time slot. That time slot is taken. You can't. Only me, the manager of it, can click on it and edit it.
Okay.
So there's Alma. She's picked up the 9 to 9:15. So I hope you can see this is a really useful way of booking in time with people. Yeah? I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Can parents use it, or do they have to belong to the Google?
No. You can send, because all you're doing, Melissa, is you're just sending them that URL. You're just sending them the link. Right? So you can get that link. Look, I'll show you what you can do. I'll do it for you right now. I can get that link, copy it. I'll copy the link address, right? I'm going to go to my email, make an email, right, to you, Melissa, right, and Enzo, not Enzo de Cosmo, is that right? Yep. Appointments. And now I can say, click here to book, right? And whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then select the word here, turn that into a link, right? There's the link. And then send it to you. Do you get that? Right? So now, you'll get an email from me in a second, and you'll be able to click that link, and it will bring up that page that we were on here. Give it a go.
And if you cancel the appointment, you can choose to say, you can choose to click to notify Greg that you're cancelling the appointment, so he doesn't get a rude shock when you don't show up.
Yeah. Did you get that email, Melissa and Enzo?
Yeah, we did. We did.
Yep, cool. So does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
All right, back to the presentation. Mike, how'd you go with that?
I booked the 10:45 slot.
Okay, fantastic.
I think.
You think? All right, well, let's have a look. I'll go to my calendar. I'll go back to my calendar here, and I'll look at my appointments. Here we go. And click on that. And it's just because there it is. And there we go. I need to click on it. So there's the one from, oops, sorry.
They do.
There's the one, yeah, there's Alma's. There's Melissa's. Melissa again. And 10:45, there you go, there's Mike, there are you. Okay. Do you get, now you should get, you get some sort of email confirmation of that? You should get an email confirmation that you've booked it.
Can we ask a question if that's okay?
Yeah, sure.
We're sort of just experimenting as you're speaking.
Yeah.
And we've tried to cancel our appointment just to see how that works. However, when we do click on the appointment we made, we're unable to get back into it. So is there a way, maybe could you explain to us how to cancel that, if that's possible?
You just go to you go to your Google Calendar.
Oh, okay.
And it will appear there. And then you click on, you just tap it, and you'll have an option to say going, which is yes or no. You've said yes probably. And the other option is just a
Cancel
blue
appointment.
text that says cancel appointment.
Can you see that there now?
We're doing that just now.
Parents won't have.
How about Don Ramey?
Yeah,
How are we going at Don Ramey?
Yep, we just found that. So yeah, thank you for that.
No worries.
Won't have a Google Calendar.
Melissa was just asking, if parents don't have access to a Google Calendar, can they still access the calendar through other means, or do they have to have an account?
Because it's just depending on the shared settings, if you make a calendar public, and because you want parents to access it, so you want anybody to access that calendar, it's basically just a URL. So when they click on the calendar, it's not dependent on a Google account, but they can bookmark that link that you've given them to have access to it all the time. But this is just general calendars, and same would be with appointment slots. But it is with appointment slots, in order to apply, it has to go somewhere, so it has to go to a calendar. but essentially it's just a URL, so it's bookmarkable.
Is that okay?
But then they won't be able to cancel an appointment if they don't have a Google Calendar, like we did. Because we had to go to our Google Calendar to cancel it. So unless they have a Google Calendar.
Yeah, I must say I haven't tried, because I'm always logged into one or second or third the Google account I have. So we might try now and have a look. So I'll just open Greg's link in a different browser where I'm not logged in, and we'll have a look.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go on.
It's just because you know how a lot of people pay to have the calendars for their parent-teacher interviews? They pay different services. So we're just wondering if you could do it as effectively with the Google Calendar.
Yeah, good point. A good question. We'll find out now.
Certainly, I think if the parent has a Google account, right, then they should be able to do everything that we've just done here.
And Google accounts are free. No, this link won't work. The link to subscribe to book an appointment doesn't seem to work if you don't have. It just takes me to a page where it's asking me to log into my Google account. So you can share calendars essentially, but for appointments, obviously they have to have a login.
Yeah, so, and that would make sense because it's all, there's emails happening, email correspondence and that sort of thing. So I think for this to work effectively, if you're going to use this with parents, then they would need to have a Google account.
So it might be a little bit of work for the parents, I suppose. But it might be an idea, if you are thinking about interviews, it might be an idea for parents to work with their son or daughter, and if they really don't want to set up their own Google account, they can always use the student's account.
That's true.
To add the interview. Because I know at my school, sorry?
I was going to say that's actually a really good idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah. We get the students to sign a sheet of paper in their diary that they know they've booked an appointment, and the parents have to sign that same sheet of paper. So it makes sense to just automatically have it in their Google Calendar, and for parents to sit down and the students can show them how to create a Google account and have a bit of a better experience in sharing and communicating what's happening at school.
So there was one more thing that, and I know we've gone over time a little bit, but it's been useful. I think it's been mainly because we've been answering questions, which is great. So we've got one more thing. If you want to spend another 5 or so minutes, is that okay? Okay. Well, we'll do the last thing, which is subscribing to other calendars. So this is pretty straightforward, and it may be something you've done before. And I mentioned this right at the very beginning. You can search for anyone's calendar. So if I, Enzo, wanted to get your calendar, I can I'll just hide my calendars here, go to other calendars and start typing in someone's address. So Enzo, there you are. And in this case, because as I said, by default, Enzo, your calendar is automatically shared. If I scroll down here, there's Enzo, right? So if I just hide some of those other calendars and maybe hide my ones as well. So that one and that one. And I don't know if you've got any events there at the moment, Enzo. Do you use your calendar much?
To be honest, no. That's one of the reasons why I attended the session, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So I can't see any appointments there. But if you obviously, you make an appointment, that's going to appear there for me. Okay? So that's the quick way to get access to someone's calendar. You can also get access to useful calendars. This is pretty good. So you can go, I've got access to things like, where are we? Australian holidays, for instance. So if you've got any holidays coming up, I think there's a school holidays one there as well. I think what you do is you hit browse interesting calendars. Doesn't look like this. I thought there was a school holidays one there. UK holidays, etc. No, there's Australian holidays. But if you hit more, there's also things like week numbers and day of the year. This is a useful one. Contacts, birthday and events. So if you've got the date of birth stored in your contacts, this will subscribe that into your calendar so that it will prompt you when someone's got a birthday coming up. You've also got some resources here, but it's probably not so useful to you because these are meeting rooms that are, pardon me, these are meeting rooms here in the offices in the southern region, eastern region, etc.
But VC rooms might be useful.
But VC rooms are there as well. So they may be useful to you, like some of the virtual meeting rooms. So you can subscribe to those and see whether they're free or busy. Go back to calendars. So that's browsing calendars. The other thing is you can add a calendar by URL. That is, if you find a calendar on a website that someone's using or someone's sharing, you can add that calendar by URL. And you can also set up calendars with your mobile devices. Now, we've put a link there if you want to set up your iPhone or your iPad with your calendars. There's a link there on how you do it. And you can do it in a couple of different ways. We've done it by adding it just as a Gmail calendar, and that seems to work. And we've also done it as adding it as an Exchange calendar, and that seems to work. The other thing that you might want to do, so I'll leave that with you to explore if you want to at a later time, and make sure you read the section that's relevant to Google Apps users. The last thing is unsubscribing. So if you've got a calendar that you no longer want to subscribe to, for instance, Carmela Di Pietro, for instance, if I don't want to subscribe to her calendar, or maybe Australian holidays one, it's pretty easy. You simply go to Other Calendars, hit Settings, and you can see you can unsubscribe over here on the right. So, for instance, if I don't want to subscribe to the Australian holidays anymore, I can just hit unsubscribe. And that will remove that calendar. So that's pretty straightforward. You can subscribe. We're keeping these sessions on a calendar, so you can hit that link and that will subscribe you to the sessions.
And I have to warn you, I've added some reminders to the CloudShare Support Session. So
good.
If you get a buzz on your laptop when your Google is enabled, it's probably what it is to remind you to join.
And that's pretty much it for today. You can register this training with the New South Wales Institute of Teachers as Teacher Identified PD if you want to. And the rest of the presentation has got some extra tips on things like Hangouts and attachments and that sort of thing. So, were there any final questions before we wrap up? No worries. Reed, you've been pretty quiet there, mate.
Yeah, we had sound problems at the start, but it's all sorted.
Okay, no worries. All right, well, look, just a plug for the last session that we've got in a couple of weeks' time. So that's on Thursday, the 5th of September, where we're going to be looking at CloudShare in the Australian curriculum. So we'd encourage you to come along to that, and we'll be circulating information about that session as well. This session's been recorded, which is great. In fact, I think the recording's about to finish. And that session will be available via the link here, and we'll send a message out about that video being ready. So if there's no final questions, we'll say goodbye. Any final questions, Mick?
Just to say thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Melissa, Enzo?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And Reed, you're okay?
Yeah, good. And the video recording's good.
Yeah, no worries. You can go back over all this stuff. All right. Okay, folks, thanks again. And we'll probably see you, or hopefully see you at the next session.